Hey guys, welcome to my channel Daily Friction. My name is Tom, and in this video I will talk about the 4 things that help me deal with regret. I will mention a few books in this video that I read throughout the last few months or years and what I discovered in those books, and at the end of the video I'll give you the quote of the day. Number 1 is Stoicism. Stoicism is an ancient school of philosophy and is more than 2,300 years old. I find it very fascinating that people thousands of years ago, they dealt with the same personal problems as we do, obstacles that were in their way, and they had to overcome those things. And I just find it so interesting to read their conclusions and solutions to deal with those problems, and we can only benefit from that, right? From hundreds and thousands of years of wisdom. Stoicism is getting more and more popular these days. There are many good books that were written over the past few years, and I will probably mention a few of them throughout the videos on this channel. And it seems like it's a very beneficial way to live your life if you follow the Stoic principles and guidelines, and if you practice it, you know. There's nothing like you listen to it once and the idea and then it clicks and then your life is different. You have to practice Stoic virtues and implement them in your life as good as possible. So one of the Stoic main principles is called the dichotomy of control, which means that the Stoics practice to differ between the things we can control and the things that we can't control. Outside events and how people react to us, pandemics, stuff like this. We can't control those things, right? So why waste energy and feelings like regret over those things? Because the past is also one of those things. We can't control it. It's outside of our grasp. We can't change it anymore. As long as there are no time machines, the past is written in the book, done, right? We can't change it. What we do have control over, and that's the other thing that the Stoics also talk about, are what we think about those things that happen to us and how we react to them, right? The stories we tell ourselves in a way about those events and what will be the outcome for our life, how we will deal with it. And the Stoics say we should actually focus our energy, our time on those things, right, that we actually control, and try to accept as good as possible the things we can't control. Number 2 is Annie Duke's book, Thinking in Bets. This is a very interesting book, and especially I loved the beginning of the book because, you know, when we read, sometimes we have those aha moments, those things like when we read something and it just clicks and we're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. It changed your perspective on certain things, right? And I had this experience with Annie Duke's book because at the beginning of the book, she already, straight the first chapter of the book. And she starts by saying, thinking in bets starts with recognizing that there are exactly 2 things that determine how our lives turn out: the quality of our decisions and luck. Learning to recognize the difference between the 2 is what thinking in bets is all about. And then she goes on to explain that most people judge decisions by their outcome, which is a fallacy, right? But that's what really most of us do. We make a decision, and if it turns out bad, we say that was a bad decision, right? Because the outcome is bad. And it's just wrong to see it this way, because there's also luck involved, right? And sometimes, and that was the part that got stuck in my head, was that sometimes our decisions are good, but then bad luck, outside circumstances, other people, events, whatever could happen, and then the outcome is bad. But nonetheless, our decision was a good one, right? Because we made a good judgment at that moment. And it could also be exactly the other way around, that we make bad decisions, but the outcome is good. And that's why we don't recognize our bad decisions necessarily, right? Like drunk driving, for example. It can be fine, and we get drunk, we drive home, we arrive, everything was fine, but it's nonetheless a bad decision. It's an unnecessary risk to take, and if something goes wrong, it's really bad, right? This principle taught me in just a few lines to not condemn myself for good decisions, I made in the past that turned out bad after all. It's very easy to look back and to know, oh, okay, it turned out this way, so it was a good decision, a bad decision. It's very easy when you look back to judge those things. Number 3 is death. Death actually gets covered in Stoicism as well, but I find it worth mentioning here separately, because if you think about death and the transcendence of life, you will realize that nothing is worth regretting for the rest of your life, or even months and years, right? Because everything will end. As Naval Ravikant says, basically in 3 generations from now, you're forgotten, that's it. And he says in his book, you're born alone, you're going to die alone. All of your interpretations are alone. All your memories are alone. You're gone in 3 generations and nobody cares. Before you showed up, nobody cared. Later he goes on, anything you do will fade. It will disappear, just like the human race will disappear and the planet will disappear. Even the group who colonizes Mars will disappear. No one is going to remember you past a certain number of generations. And the Stoics also talk about this. They call it the view from above, right? Where you see the world and the universe, the past, present, future. You realize how little some of your problems are and some of your regrets and how they actually don't matter, right? Because everything will come to an end anyway. So why would you waste so much energy and time for those things? But not just that, it's actually more than that. You're actually wasting time, and this distracts you from being in the moment, right? In the here and now. And time is the only resource that we can never get back. So regretting is basically wasting time. We can only take our lessons from what happened in our lives, but then we have to move on. Otherwise, we will waste this resource. We will waste time, and there's actually no point to it. And in the end, things don't matter. Number 4 is giving things a reason. The things that happen, those bad things, right, that we feel regretful for now. Let's give them a reason, okay? I don't believe in the old saying that everything happens for a reason and that there's a big master plan behind everything that happens. I don't believe in that. But many years ago, I already had the thought that how about you take those bad things that happened and you create something positive out of it, right? You give those things a reason. Think of it like this. What would need to happen in your life that someday in the future you will look back at this event and you will feel positive about it instead of regretful, right? Because something positive came out of it. And again, the Stoics also talked about this principle before, and it was called amor fati, which means not just accepting your fate, what happens to you, but also love it, right? Being like, not just accepting, but making something good out of it, producing something good out of it. For example, if something bad happens to you and you say, okay, this was sad, I can't change it anymore, but let's stop smoking from this event on, right? Like, let's take this event as the beginning of a new habit, or letting go of a bad habit like smoking or drinking or whatever it is. And so in the end, when you stick to it, and that also motivates you to actually stick to it, right? And then 5 years from now and 10 years from now, you look back at the event and you don't have this bad feeling anymore, because you feel, okay, the event itself was bad, but I turned it into something good. I created something good out of this, right? I stopped smoking, I lost weight, whatever, I started to go to the gym, things like this. Embrace what happened and become someone better and stronger because of it. Ryan Holiday says in The Obstacle is the Way, we can see the bad things that happen in our lives with gratitude and not with regret, because we turn them from disaster to real benefit, from defeat to victory. Fate doesn't have to be fatalistic. It can be destiny and freedom just as easily. And also in See You at the Top from Zig Ziglar, he puts it in those words, a setback, regardless of the severity, can be a stepping stone and not a stumbling block. So you see, that's what I mean, like when you read those different books and from different people and you hear from their experience, their wisdom, and you connect the dots and you feel like this really seems to be a beneficial way to think, because many different people talk about this. I hope that those 4 points help you deal with regret. They certainly helped and still help me. And if you like this video and if you want to become a part of the Friction family, just hit the subscribe button and I want to end this video and the upcoming videos with some of my favorite quotes, and I will share them with you and tell you what I think about them. So for this video I picked a quote of an MMA fighter. His name is Frank Mir, and he said, "You know what the true definition of hell is. It's when you die, you get to meet the person you could have been." I really like this quote because it describes the feeling that you have towards the end of your life when you look at yourself and then you imagine what you could have become. There are certain decisions, habits, fears that could have been overcome instead of letting them hold you back, right? And things could have dramatically changed for you and bring you to another place in the end. Towards the end of life, we will all realize that with many things, there was nothing to lose after all, except things that we never tried, experienced, or that we never became. It would probably be a brutal moment for most of us to see what was actually possible in our lives and what we became instead on the paths of mediocrity and laziness. And so that's why, my friends, subscribe to this channel, watch the upcoming videos, and let's grow together. Have a wonderful day, my friends.